So there was very little chance that I figured I'd get into school. In fact, I almost applied on a whim, which was only because the application for Harvard was exactly the same as this application for this other school that was much less competitive. And so, I figured, why not? Why not give it a shot? And so I applied, and luckily enough, I actually did end up getting in with a full ride. And so that's when I realized that the number one reason that people get rejected, for example, from schools like Harvard or other good schools, isn't that college rejects them. It's much more so that they don't even try in the first place. And so what I realized is, there are far too many people out there who could succeed if they were only to try, but they sell themselves short and they don't even give it a chance to start. And so I think that might be the greatest tragedy of all right there. And with something like this, right, you have such a high upside that can really change the trajectory of your whole life, and very little downside, right, to really give something a shot. And yeah, so I mean, if you have the chance, why not give it a shot? So the Thiel Fellowship that Peter Thiel's running as well, and I've realized that I have absolutely no qualifications. I've never done entrepreneurship before. I have no tech background. I've never programmed. I've never run a company. No idea how to manage a product, run a team, launch something. That you have qualification, which is that I've already dropped out of school, so I have nothing else I'm going to do with my life, so I might as well give it a shot and try this. And so luckily enough, they also they had an unconventional first-year criteria for who would become a Thiel Fellow, and they really didn't know exactly what they were doing either. So he just figured, hey, okay, this guy's pretty cool. He dropped out of school and went and climbed a mountain. That is a clear qualification for being an entrepreneur, so why not give him a shot? So luckily enough, I actually got in back in 2011. And that completely changed the trajectory of my life. And so the lesson I learned there is, this has been true for my entire life from that point onwards, that, you just try something. Most of the time you might fail, but some of the time you might succeed. And the times that you succeed make all the difference. So, but this leads to the next lesson that I learned, which is everybody does fall the first time, which is a quote from The Matrix. If you know that scene where Neo's jumping across the roofs and they think he's like the savior, right? But he falls. And so what does that mean? It means it's okay, because you can try again, and it'll be better the second time around, and if not the second, the third, right? And so I thought I got the fellowship, I'm gonna make a great company, everything's gonna be wonderful. What I don't realize is, actually I'm still the same person. I'm just a super naive 19-year-old with no experience running a company, and no qualifications whatsoever, no reason I should succeed. And what this leads me to is my next point. I learned a lot of lessons the first time around, and one of the lessons I learned is that you shouldn't just get a co-founder because everyone says you need one. So if being a solo founder is net zero, right? It's the norm, but having a bad co-founder is minus 1,000. So I learned a lot of lessons, and honestly, the first startup that I had, it was an e-commerce site where it would aggregate prices for you to find the best deals on the internet, in short. And so you'll hear this a lot as you start a company, if you're on your journey, or if you already have started a company, that you should find co-founders. And this is good advice. If you find some who you get along with 100%, you want to do something with, it's absolutely better to have a co-founder than not, right? Running a company is extremely hard, and having two people help you do something is a lot better than one. And so, that said, if you find a bad co-founder, it's completely the opposite. So I was like, all right, this is pretty cool. I'd love to work with you. In retrospect, I realized, if we were only acquaintances back when I was at Harvard, there's no reason that I should expect, when the stakes were so low and we weren't spending 100% of our time together, we couldn't become best friends, or good friends even, that we would somehow manage to make it work once the stakes were so high running a company, and we were spending all our waking hours together. And this turned out to be completely true. So we ended up disagreeing on the company horribly crashed, burned, and failed within 6 months, right? And so we didn't even manage to launch the first thing. Everything just cratered. But I did get a very good lesson out of it. And I hope this is something that maybe you guys can take away vicariously, but if not, you guys will learn this yourselves, so that's good. But this leads me to my next lesson, which is the opposite. So here's the secret to actually finding a good co-founder. But it's not necessarily the place that you necessarily want to find a co-founder. Instead, just do the things that you love. Because chances are that's when you'll really find the people that you get along with. And so, at this point, I'm pretty bummed, right? I'm totally not qualified to be here. I'm not supposed to be doing this. And at the same time, there's a mentor in this network of the Thiel Fellowship, and he's like, all right, hey, I'm organizing a trip to Antarctica. That's where they're going to form the bonds that really good things come out of. But at the time for me, it's like, all right, this is probably the most irresponsible thing I can do. And now I'm going to go and just take a cruise to Antarctica. Funny enough, it actually turned out to be the best business decision I've ever made. And that's because the thesis that this guy had was right. So from everything from having the same camera to the same dental floss, reading the same books, and having the same desire to take a cruise ship to Antarctica, climb the 7 summits, and so forth, we just realized we're basically the same person. And in retrospect, this made me realize that, and the reason is, where else am I going to find someone who's doing the things I love to do, right? As opposed to just some contrived event where you're going to meet people not at all similar to yourself. And so we ended up going on the trip to Australia afterwards, climbed the tallest mountain in Australia, which is actually just a small hill. After that, we realized, there's no reason we shouldn't try starting a company together. That, thankfully, leads me to my second attempt at success in life, and I still have no idea where I should be pointing this. All right. There we go. So you should validate your product or idea as soon as possible. Try to sell something before you actually make it, not the other way around. And so the conventional idea is, okay, you have a great idea, go heads down, make the product and then launch it to the world. But the opposite is actually true because it's very difficult to know what people actually want until they actually give you money for what you're selling. And so if you're familiar with crowdfunding or not, sites like Kickstarter or Indiegogo, they basically allow you to put your product or your idea or your service or your vision out there on the platform, and people all around the world will actually give you money for your idea before you even make it. And so at the time, we were like, all right, this is just a great way for us to get enough money to get our idea off the ground. Secondly, it gave us the money we needed to start the company without even giving up any equity, right? So that was wonderful as well. But then the third thing was it actually allowed us to create a launch event around which we could generate a lot of press, a lot of momentum, a lot of awareness of our brand. So we ended up getting covered by the New York Times, Time Magazine, Rolling Stone, Inc., Entrepreneur, TechCrunch, and so that was a wonderful time for us to launch a company. That said, though, let's see. There we go. Success is nonlinear. This is the next lesson that we learned, right? Everyone loves us. We have a lot of customers. We have a lot of money. All we have to do is you can go forward and make this product. Obviously, not that simple. And the only thing I can say to that is don't give up just because things are going bad. In the Trough of Sorrow, you're not really finding product market fit. You don't really know how to market your product. Maybe you can't even really build the right product. Just this very long, hard slog of trying to figure out all the problems that a startup faces. And so what we learned after that is persistence can compensate for a lot of failure. A lot of times, things just tend to get better over time. And so right around when we're like, all right, maybe we should just give up on this and try something else, Devin had an interesting idea, my co-founder, that maybe we could actually take what we learned with our first product and apply the delivery mechanism to a different product. Again, nonlinear success. We had the second thing that we made. Things are good. But at the same time, we still realized we hadn't figured out this scalable marketing thing that we needed to really generate sustainable revenue over time. And so, it's still a struggle at this point. And eventually we get to a point where it's like, okay, are we going to figure this out? And can we become a successful company? So put all your eggs in one basket and make this startup succeed. And certainly this works for some people, right? A lot of people have tried this. And if you're able to do that, that's great, right? If you're able to really grind through, sacrifice everything, the reality of the fact is most things fail. And if you put all your eggs in this one basket, if you put everything you've ever made in your life, either put it to the side or dump it into the startup that you're making, and that startup fails, that can be devastating, right? And I think the worst thing that can happen is you get so burnt out from doing that that you don't even try again. And so I'd like to actually posit an alternative theory, which is that you should enjoy your life, and you should enjoy this journey and not sacrifice yourself for your work, because there's no guarantee that there ever will be a payoff. And the only thing that you have full 100% control over is how you're going to enjoy what you're doing right now, to what extent. And so, we got to a point with the company where we're like, all right, is this thing going to work? Are we going to be able to push through to the next level or not? And I reached a breaking point. I'm like, you know what, actually, I'm not going to try to kill myself doing this one thing. I'm going to enjoy myself doing this and take it more easy, right? Nurture my friendships, take time for myself, take care of my health, all these little things. And if this thing fails, that's okay, right? I've learned a lot from this lesson, and things will be okay in the future. I'll be able to give it another shot. And so I'm going on this cruise. Nothing's going to come of this, right? It's purely for pleasure. But actually, one of the friends who's a mutual acquaintance of the guy who put this cruise together, his name's Dick, we hit it off. We were fairly good friends, but nothing came of it right then and there. And what I realized is, you should nurture your friendships over time, and take care of the people around you, even if there's no direct business or success benefit that you can see from doing so. And so, for 2.5 years after I went on this cruise, I sent out a monthly update to everyone that came on the cruise with us. And 2.5 years in was right about the point where we were thinking about giving up on this company. And so, Devin had actually left the company earlier. He was a VC. He was making like $500,000 a year. It's hard for him to spend less than like $20,000 a month, right? Not really conducive to the startup lifestyle. And so it made sense for him to go off and do something else. And so, right around this time, I'm like, we need help with marketing, right? We're looking for someone who can actually, take what we have and communicate it to the audience that we need. And Dick was between jobs at this point. So 2.5 years later, after we had gone on this trip, he replied to my monthly update and was like, hey, I'm between things, and I'd love to give it a shot. When you find great people, do whatever you can to keep them, right? Insist on treating them well, even if you don't have to. So Dick at the time was insistent to us that this was only a temporary gig, right? This guy was successful in his own right. He'd raised $2 million for his own startup with 2 million kind of users at the time. That thing fell apart, but he was ready to go do his next thing. And he basically agreed to work with us pro bono at the time, so he agreed to very small monthly retainer and maybe 10% profits. And so once things started working, he's like, all right, now I'm going to leave the company, right, as we agreed, and you don't have to pay me that 10% anymore. But just out of fairness, right, it's like, all right, you deserve basically everything that you made at this company, so I insisted that we actually keep paying him the 10% in perpetuity as long as we kept using his sales pages, anything that he made. And we actually came up on this very unorthodox compensation agreement as well, where this guy loves to travel. Obviously we met on the cruise ship across the Pacific Ocean. And so this is something that you really do as a compensation agreement, right? No one I've heard of has actually done this for an employee. But for us, it's like, all right, hey, we found someone amazing, right? And we want to keep him for company. And so to this day, Dick's actually still working with us. And the reason for that is basically because we made it worth his while in such a way that, he didn't want us to. He completely planned to move on to something else. But we figured out, and I think if you're able to figure out some agreement that maybe isn't even the most compensation-heavy agreement in such a way that you don't have to pay them that much money.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but please, I want you to welcome Hariri, our Prime Minister, a surprise for us today, and we appreciate it a lot. Thank you.
Wow. Thanks for coming.
You can continue to us in 5 minutes.
This is a surprise. So much for
You were
coming.
here in town, so I had to come.
Thank you so much for coming. I appreciate it. One of my other points, which is raising money is nice, but not raising money is actually even better. How much money a company has raised, right? It's like, wow, look at, say Casper or something, right? They raised $100 million. That's great. But I think a little bit more, even more impressive, right? If you're able to bootstrap something. And some of the most successful companies in the world today actually are bootstrapped. So GitHub, for example, Braintree, Pandora, all these companies, they managed to get off the ground with almost no money, just money that they got from their own savings. And so we're extremely thankful for our investors, right? We've actually raised money in the past, and that's the only reason that we're here today, because we had so many times that we failed, right, that we needed this money to keep us going. But at the same time, I think it's important to think about what you really want to do. But okay, cool. Startups don't have to be binary, right? You hear this a lot, is that startups have an extremely high failure rate. But I don't think that actually has to be the case, right? It's not necessarily rocket science. It's not easy to run a company. It's not the same as quantum physics. And so it doesn't have to have such a high failure rate. It's not you either make nothing or you make $1 billion, right? You don't have to shoot for a star straight out the gate, and you might even have a better chance if you don't do this. So a lot of entrepreneurs out there, you might have heard of, like, for example, Elon Musk, right? Who's definitely shooting for his stars now, right? He has Tesla, he has SpaceX. But even he says that, if he were to do his first thing, he might start with just a simple internet company. And so his first thing that he sold for, just in the tens of millions was not, a rocket ship company, right? And so I think it's important to think about where you want to go, and if you're aiming for that, maybe $10 to $100 million exit versus $1 billion, your success rate is a lot higher. It's a lot easier to get there, and after you get that, maybe you can shoot for stars at that point, right? And so, all right, that's basically all the advice I have for you now. So I would just like to leave you with one thing, which is good luck.